Welcome to the deep dive. Looking at all this material you sent over, one thing really kind of jumps out.
What's that?
Just how fundamental classifications are. I mean, everywhere, right? In work,
Yeah.
science, just understanding anything.
Oh, absolutely. Unavoidable, really. The sources kick off saying just that we literally can't escape them. It's how we make sense of stuff.
Right. So the mission today, for us and for you listening, is to really dig into that. Look at how useful they are, but also maybe where the traps lie.
Yeah, give folks a bit of a shortcut, maybe, to understanding this whole complex thing without, their brains exploding.
Exactly. Avoid the brain explosion. And the material mentions this natural tendency we have, right? Our brains just do this categorization thing.
Totally. It's baked in. It's about efficiency, survival even, at a basic level. Our brains are wired to simplify all the info coming at us. Categories are, well, key. Mental shortcuts.
Okay, shortcuts. So heuristics, the book calls them.
Yeah.
And they can be really good.
Yeah, mostly good. They let us make quick judgments based on past experience. Think about that snake example they use.
Ah, the snake. Right, you see one, you instinctively kind of give it space.
Exactly. You don't need to be an expert herpetologist to know, maybe don't poke that. It's a quick, generally smart assessment.
But thinking about like personality types in team building, could that shortcut sometimes mean we miss something? Maybe undervalue someone?
That's hitting the nail on the head. Because these classifications, they represent capabilities, the syntactics, what something can do, and meanings the semantics, what it is.
So with the snake, the classification snake equals potential danger immediately tells you steer clear.
Right. Even without 100% certainty about that specific snake, there's a risk assessment built right in. It's efficient.
And it's not just dangers. We do it with roles too, don't we? Like doctor, teacher, boss, employee.
Those labels instantly trigger expectations, responsibilities. We know roughly what to expect from a doctor or what's expected of us as an employee.
It sets up a whole framework. Social, professional, even legal.
Okay, so the source material then kind of shifts gears, doesn't it? Beyond these like basic survival or role things.
Exactly. Those established roles provide structure. But then, yeah, it brings up a really key difference. Classifications that aren't, let's say, naturally occurring in the same way. They're actively suggested, pushed almost.
Ah, okay. Now we're talking personality types,
Yeah.
learning styles, leadership models, the stuff you see everywhere.
Precisely. The Myers-Briggs, the DeC profiles, all that jazz.
Yeah.
Super common in education, management, professional development.
And it varies too, apparently. Like different demographics might latch on to different ones.
Yeah, that's mentioned too. There can be trends. But the idea is understanding these can have some value.
Value how?
Well, for self-reflection, maybe. Understanding your own tendencies, how you interact, and potentially helping others accommodate you a bit, or you accommodate them.
Okay, so I can see how knowing someone prefers, say, written instructions might be helpful. If it doesn't clash massively with the situation, I guess. Exactly, provided those preferences aren't fundamentally in conflict, as the source puts it. It's about minor adjustments, ideally.
But, and here's the turn I mentioned, the sources really get into the downsides now, right? The perils.
Oh, yeah. This is where it gets critical, because these same categories, even without bad intentions, can make people feel, well, worse.
Like the type A versus type B thing?
Yeah.
If you're labeled B, does that suddenly mean you're less driven or capable?
That's the kind of thing. It creates these divisions, these negative vibes, and then you get labels thrown around like someone being called toxic.
Oof, yeah. That word gets used a lot.
And it can lead to exclusion, right?
Yeah.
Based on these often flimsy, maybe pop psychology ideas people pick up from, airport paperbacks.
Without much solid science behind them sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. And they get used to box people in, even justify treating them unfairly. It's not just pop psych either. The critique goes deeper.
Deeper how? Into professional roles.
Yes.
Huh.
Think about basic job titles.
Yeah.
Worker, manager, director, whatever. They should just signal expertise or responsibility level.
But they often become about power, privilege.
Exactly. They get misused to assign authority in ways that aren't really about the job itself, but about status.
And then there are those other sort of implied classifications.
Yeah, the inferred ones, like judging if someone's a good team player or professionally friendly.
Which can be super subjective.
Totally subjective. It creates these unspoken tests, right? These invisible hoops people have to jump through to be accepted based on standards that aren't even clear.
Wow. So you're constantly trying to fit some vague mold, and the material talks about trying to fix this with just Changing the names, like, that's enough.
Right, the illusion of refinement, they call it, like using people of color.
Which is meant to be better, more respectful.
And the intention is good, but the source makes a sharp point. It still defines the group by what it isn't, i.e. not white. The underlying issue, the unfair treatment based on skin color, doesn't vanish just because the label changed.
That's a really crucial point. It makes you think about other terms, too, like shifting from disabled to persons with special abilities.
Again, positive intent. But the argument is maybe it misses the bigger picture, which is that everyone has a unique mix of abilities and limitations.
And everyone is, in a way, disabled in some contexts, especially if the world is built for some mythical average person.
Exactly. The term disabled often just highlights the mismatch between a person and an environment not designed for them. If society really saw everyone as having limitations, maybe we'd have adapted more universally already.
Which brings us neatly to organizations, right? How they sometimes misuse classifications.
Yes. The tendency to design the system first for efficiency, usually, and then try to slot people into it.
Instead of adapting the system to the actual people they have.
Right. And using screening tests based on narrow ideas of fit, like personality, instead of focusing primarily on skills and education needed for the role.
So their understanding of diversity might just be scratching the surface, like demographic boxes ticked, but not really embracing different ways of thinking or working.
That's a big part of it. And the source highlights a tough reality. Getting the groups who are already comfortable the more advantage to genuinely invest in supporting and developing the less advantaged within that specific setup. That's a real hurdle.
So if that's the problem, what's the ideal? What should classifications be doing for us in, say, a work context?
Ideally, they should be tools for mutual adaptation, for helping everyone develop skills, share knowledge openly, building bridges, not walls.
So less comparison, more collaboration, less exclusivity.
That's the goal. But realistically, the material acknowledges some people might resist that. They might stay on the edges, not wanting to engage or improve for whatever reason.
Which raises that tricky question, is there a right way or a wrong way to use them?
And the answer is, it depends, doesn't it? It depends on your perspective. The classifier versus the classified. Their goals might be totally different.
It comes down to those hidden assumptions again. Whose view is baked into the classification? Usually the dominant group's view of what's normal.
Absolutely, which is why we have to keep questioning them. Keep asking, is this fair? Is it helpful? Is there a better, more inclusive way to think about this?
This need for critical thinking feels really important when you look at those false comparisons the source mentions. Like the whole managers are bad, leaders are good thing.
Oh, that old chestnut. Yeah, it's such a false dichotomy, isn't it?
Totally. Managers deal with structure, process, making things work. Leaders mobilize people, inspire vision. They're different functions, but you often need both. Many people do both.
Exactly. They're complementary, not opposites. And it's the same trap with leadership styles like transactional versus transformational versus servant leadership.
Right. They get presented as these completely separate boxes. Like you can't be a servant leader and also handle transactions effectively.
Which is just not realistic.
Right.
Good leadership often involves adapting your style. Situational leadership, right? Sometimes you need to be transactional to get things done systematically. Other times you need transformation to inspire change.
And the source warns about blindly championing one style, like servant leadership, without thinking about the bigger picture, like organizational goals or external stakeholders.
Yeah. If being purely servant means you neglect essential structures or fail to meet external demands, that's not actually effective leadership for the whole system, is it?
Good point. You need both the systematic and the transformational, often working together.
So these labels, manager, leader, transactional, servant, they're useful for discussion, for understanding concepts, but they aren't rigid, mutually exclusive realities in practice.
So wrapping this all up, the big message seems to be, use classifications, we kind of have to, but do it carefully, with your eyes open.
Exactly, with caution. Remember their limits, remember the potential for bias and unintended harm.
And ideas like inclusion and diversity only really mean something if we're using classifications honestly to help and improve, not just to filter people out.
Yeah, there's a huge irony there, isn't there? Talking constantly about inclusivity while simultaneously using classification systems to screen or reject people based on potentially narrow criteria.
It's powerful stuff. As the chapter says, these tools can be amazing, but in the wrong hands or used carelessly, well, potentially catastrophic.
So, reflecting on it all, Classifications are powerful, yes, but they're human-made, subjective, limited. Over-relying on them leads to exclusion.
They reflect the creator's perspective, often the dominant one.
Right. And comparing people based on them can backfire, creating rivalry instead of teamwork. Using them well means context is everything, and being flexible.
Okay, so for listeners wanting to take something concrete away, the source suggests some actions.
Yeah, basically. First, look at your own biases. What categories do you use? How might they be limiting your view?
Good one.
Second, embrace flexibility. Be willing to change your categories, expand them, ditch them if they're not working fairly. Don't treat them as set in stone.
Good. Third.
Foster inclusivity. Actively check. Are my classifications disadvantaging anyone? How can I make them broader, more welcoming of difference?
Makes sense.
Fourth,
Contextualize comparisons. If you are comparing groups or individuals based on a classification, dig deeper. What are the real factors at play? Don't just take the label at face value.
then finally,
Promote critical dialogue. Just talk about it with your team, in your organization. Question the classifications you use. Uncover those blind spots together.
some really solid takeaways there. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening to mull over.
Go on.
Think about the classifications that pop up in your own work, your own life, every day. How might they be quietly shaping how you see things, how you interact? And maybe,
Yeah.
what's just one small tweak you could make in how you categorize things, and what new perspective might that open up?
Yeah. That's a good place to leave it. Lots to think about.
Definitely. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.